Hey there, YouTube. Welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer. And in this video, we're going to get back to the basics. We're going to get back to the basics of tabletop RPG gaming. And this video is really geared for the new people, the people just coming into the hobby, people that may be interested in tabletop gaming, and maybe they are looking at solitaire as an option, or perhaps they just don't know where to start and they're interested in it. This video sounds interesting to you, stick around to learn more. Before we jump on into it, first thing first, if you like the video, click the like button. What this is going to do for you is it's going to get more content, not necessarily more of my videos, but more content creators out of there that are similar videos like mine. It's the way it works, and direct it towards you so you can get more information, more bang for your buck, if you will. Second thing is, if you just stopped in here, you just discovered my channel and you enjoy the video, don't forget to click the subscribe button followed by the bell icon. Every time I upload a video, you're going to get a notification to let you know that one has uploaded and ready to watch. Or you can go to the third option, which is do neither and just enjoy the video. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the beginning for the beginner, and where to start, and some of the things you're going to need to get into the tabletop gaming hobby. Okay, first and foremost, I think the one, I should say, resource most people use today to be able to go and get information for tabletop gaming is going to be social media, which onto itself can be a vat of nasty, vile viciousness, to say the least. In the past, I've been members of different D&D groups that have just been cutthroat, horrible, rude, and really it was nothing about RPG gaming. It was more or less just like the people complaining about different games, which just kind of didn't make any sense to me. Which gets me to, if you're new, the very, very first rule of tabletop gaming that you have to understand and you have to take to heart, and that is, at the end of the day, if the game system that you are using, you are having fun, you are enjoying it, it's putting a smile on your face, you want a game again, that's what you're after. That is the main point behind the gaming. Not if the game is 50 years old or if the game is 2 years old. It does not matter. It really does not. And do not let people try to sway you in a different mindset or a different direction, because there's multiple different reasons, in my opinion, and I'm going to keep my opinions to myself as to why I think that is, but for most part, just don't engage with it. I had kind of fallen off the deep end with that a little bit with this right here, D&D 5th edition. And it wasn't until I had to take time off, and I didn't really have much time for gaming. I didn't really have much time to really hang out in my game room and be able to sit and immerse myself, because I had home renovations going on, so I had other important things going on that demanded my time. And it wasn't until I got back in here and I started straightening things up and moving things around that I pulled this off the shelf, and I sat down and I started, thumbing through it and reading it. And I said, man, you know what? I really, really do like 5th. Now, this is the original printing of 5th, but I enjoy it. I like it. And granted, I mean, there's a lot of hubbub out there right now on the internet about where they're moving to and what that's going to become. And, am I going to buy any more D&D? Probably not. And the reason why I say that is I have basic edition all the way through 5th edition. I really don't need any more D&D. I mean, if I cannot find enough information in this room to make a decent D&D campaign, I doubt getting a new edition will help me with that. So yeah, that's just where I sit with it. I think it got more than enough D&D. So that's where I'm at. But I still like 5th edition for the fact that 5th edition, well, works very well solitaire. It is really a good solitaire edition out of all the editions that they have had out there. Um, it is the most seamless, but it's set up to be a sandboxy type. And you may be like, what? Sandbox? I'm going to explain that here to you in a minute. I was just using this as an example. First thing when you get into tabletop gaming is you're going to meet people that may be more favorable towards one system, one rule set, one type of genre of gaming over others. And not that that's a problem. It's really not, because at the end of the day, it's why I enjoy solitaire, is because I can game the way I want to, not sitting at a table with other people, and maybe there's perhaps a story aspect that seems extremely insignificant to me that I don't really want to investigate, because I want to know, hey, this guy that just, shot 4 rounds into the room that ran off, why are we not going to pursue him to figure out what's going on? Why are we going to go in an opposite direction? And typically, if you look around the table, you're going to find 2 or 3 other people that kind of agree with you and are like, okay, so that's the reason why I engage with solitaire, because I enjoy the game the way I want to game, not the way other people feel I should be gaming. So when it comes to that, that's the way that I look at it, and it's the way that I do enjoy my gaming. So that's a consideration you have to sit down and you have to balance out getting into tabletop RPGs. If you decide you want to play in a large group and you want a large group of people, there's a lot of nowadays, there is a lot of support for that online, whether you're using Zoom, you're using Facebook Messenger, you're using Roll20. The list goes on as to these other platforms that they have that you can utilize that. Or if you're deciding to host it in your house and have people come over to your house and you're going to host a RPG session in your house, this is all things that you'll have to decide. Whereas of solitaire, you don't have to worry about that. Solitaire, when you're ready to game, go game. And when you decide you're done gaming, you're done gaming. End of story. It's just more convenient for me. Now, I don't do exclusively 100% just all solitaire. When it comes to my RPGs, I'm going to say 90% of my gaming is solitaire. I do game online, and I do cooperative type of gaming, which is a solo cooperative, which is very fun. It's a friend of mine. He also enjoys solitaire gaming, but there's times that we'll talk about different games, and it's like, yeah, I went through it, and I had this experience. Yeah, I had this experience, and we'll kind of compare notes and say, hey, that's really cool. We should make a campaign out of that and play it. Oh, okay. And that's what we'll do. And now it's not it's not an every week thing. It's when we get time. He's busy, I'm busy, and it's one of those things. So you got to take all this into consideration before you jump into the hobby of, is this something you want to do? Is this going to be more beneficial for you in your time? And in my opinion, yes, because you're now you're turning off the screen, you're getting away from the technology, and you're now rooting yourself back into a more slower paced, a more relaxing type of gaming, because just for that fact, it's not on a digital platform to where you're getting constant distractions from notifications or other things that are going to pull you away from that, or you're trying to compete with bandwidth and all these other things that just are not a factor, that just are not even a consideration in your gaming. So there's some food for thought for you to think about with solitaire gaming or gaming in a group, tabletop gaming versus online digital gaming. Now, with that being said, there's two different, I'm going to break this down, standards when it comes to gaming. You're going to have OSR, and then you're going to have a more modernized gaming, this being a very modern RPG that's out there. And then we get into OSR, which is this right here, which is the old school, real. And there's a lot of this still out there, not like this. These are originals, and you'll probably break the bank trying to find these and find them in decent playable condition. And even when you get them, you're gonna find that there's a lot of rules that are extremely vague, where there's more modern prints of old school that have ironed out all of those kinks, and they make it a more cohesive, simple to understand gaming experience. And I really would recommend you, if you want to go down the path of old school gaming, and I got a couple examples here for you. I'll show you here in a minute, that we'll get into, that can help you get you there. So with that being said, let's get into, if you're still with me and you decide, yeah, I want to try tabletop gaming, I want to get into this artichoke, I mean, what would you suggest? Okay. The very, very first thing I suggest to people, okay, that want to get into tabletop gaming, whether they have never played, if they've never played an RPG before and they want to experience it, they don't know where to start. And there's two main reasons why I suggest this game system to them. One, it's cheap. It's not going to cost them a lot of money. And if they decide they don't like it, they're not out of a lot. It's, hey, if you don't like it, you don't like it. And, to each their own. And two, they're simple. It's actually going to teach them the fundamentals of RPG and dungeon delving, and it's gonna help them really progress and grow as a gamer and get into more complex games, because they're already gonna have that basic simple structure underneath their belt, and they're going to understand that. So the first game, and I suggest, when I get asked this all the time, I answer it on my YouTube comments, I answer it on my Facebook group, other people I've had conversations with, I recommend it to them that say, hey, I want to get into tabletop RPG, what would you recommend? I think a lot of people would think I would send them straight to 5th edition, or send them, no, that's 5th edition, that comes later. What I would suggest that they start out on is going to be a little cool game. And you know what? I still play this today, and it's great. I love it. And I also use it for, if you're familiar with the term miniatures, which are little game pieces that you purchase and you customize, and you try to reflect your character or NPCs or whatever you have going on there. But there's a whole entire different type of gaming, war gaming, where you utilize miniatures. And I double this game out for that as well, and it's pretty fun. It's enjoyable. I still use it when I don't want to engage in a very story-rich RPG. I just want to play something light. I just want to roll some dice, move some minis around the terrain, and, kill an hour or two. And that is this one right here, 4 Against Darkness, which, as you can see, it is a solitary dungeon delving pen and paper game, and exactly what it is. Now, this runs like $5. You get it on Amazon for $5. I'm pretty sure at this point, you can probably go straight to their site and download it for free on a PDF. Don't quote me on that, but I think you can. And if you can, then you can get it for nothing. And then the only thing that you have to acquire, moving on from there, is just a couple simple 6-sided dice. You don't need, like what I have here, the regular, white 6-sided, black dotted dice that you get out of your Monopoly set will work just as fine. And you'll have everything you need in there. But let's break down For Against Darkness, and I'm going to explain why I recommend it. So the reason why I recommend this is for a couple of simple reasons. One, you're gonna keep track of 4 different characters, so it's going to give you the experience of being in a group. If you had 4 different players, and the game, because it's solitary, already has the rules set up in it, or AI, how you want to refer to that, which is going to be the game master. So you essentially are going to be able to experience that game flow to teach you the structure of how the game operates right there. And as your characters progress, you're going to have to manage their resources. You're going to have to either lower or increase their life points as you progress through the story, as they level with experience. So as your characters have gone through levels of this dungeon, and now they are more well equipped and more experienced at dealing with these encounters at that point, that's going to be reflected on the character sheet, not only with the weapons and armor they may be carrying, but also it's going to be reflected in their attributes and how attributes advance and make your character overall stronger. And it's going to teach you these fundamentals. You're going to see this in all RPG games. That's the basics of an RPG game. So it teaches you that, and as you're playing, you're learning how to do this. The other cool thing about it is it already has the encounters that you're going to run into in the dungeons already built in here, with a table that you're just going to roll on and populate them rooms. Now, of course, it's the same encounters, and over a span of time, I get it, it's going to become stale. But I think the first few times you play through it, you're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to enjoy it. When it gets to that point to where it starts to feel stale, you start to be like, okay, I want to be challenged a little bit more. There is a second game system that I really recommend for people once they grasp this and they get this underneath their belt and they understand it, is to move into another one. That's, believe it or not, $5, but it does give you a lot more to work with. Now, it's going to be more complex, and you're going to have to go and get yourself a Polyhedral dice set, which this day and age is no problem. If you're connected to the internet, if you're watching this on the internet, then you can just as easily access Amazon, eBay, Miniature Market. I mean, you'd be surprised where you can find these. Polyhedral dice sets. If you're not familiar with a polyhedral dice set is, well, I'm going to explain that to you right now. Polyhedral dice set is made up with 7 dice, and they are specific for tabletop role-playing games. The first thing is, which is going to be the most iconic dice that you see, and you see it everywhere on t-shirts, on logos, and everything else, and that is the D20, the 20-sided die right here. The second one you're going to have is going to be a 12-sider, which is going to be right here, followed by an 8-sider, followed by a 10-sided die, and its partner, the percentile 10-sided die that go with that, along with a 6-sided dice, and then last but not least, your 4-sided. Now, it may seem more complex than both of these, and really, you're not going to use all the dice at one time. Different situations, different parts of the game are going to require you to roll different dice for different game elements that you're going to encounter, and or story elements, just all depending. One of the more, I'm going to say, prominent that you're going to see with a lot of tables, particularly a lot of source books, game books will have tables in them, and it's going to either give it to you and tell you to roll a 1d20 and reference it, or it's going to tell you to roll a d100 and reference the table. So you're going to see your percentile dice used for a lot of tables, but you're going to see that in a lot of your game master guides, dungeon master guides, stuff like that, where they're going to utilize a lot of your tables. And then typically your other dice, your 12-siders, your 6-siders, your 8-siders, and your 4-siders are usually reserved. They can be used for tables, but mainly weapons. It's going to be used for weapons damage, whereas your 20-sider is actually going to be your main go-to dice to resolve skills, combat, and other interactions that your characters will run into in your game worlds. Now, you're probably thinking, what book is this, Artichoke? You've explained the Polyhedral dice set to me. That is this book right here. Ta-da! Basic Fantasy. Basic Fantasy is old school D&D, but it has an upgrade. It's been souped up to operate on, which is one of my favorite editions of D&D, is the 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons, which is a very streamlined dice mechanic system that it uses. It makes things simple, it speeds things up, and as far as combat goes, skill checks and stuff like that, it is far more simple. I don't want to use simple. Simple is not really the word I'm looking for. I'm going to say streamlined. It's far more streamlined because the rounds go quicker, they're resolved quicker, and particularly solitaire, it's easier to work with that rather than using your older tables. Oh, I bet I don't have the matrix in here for the hit tables, do I? Yeah, but I got a character sheet though. Whereas you're going to have here at the bottom, you can see this table you have to work with, and you have to cross-reference for your character to be able to hit in an encounter, versus the encounter having its own table, and you got to roll and cross-reference to hit your character. And when it comes to solitaire gaming, I mean, have I used it? Sure, and it works. But I've been playing this game for quite a long time, so it's kind of like, you know, second nature to me. But for people just getting into the hobby, this may be a whole another level of complexity that they don't want to deal with. They just want to roll one dice. They want to add whatever their bonus is to that roll, and they want to cross-check it to a given fixed value number to know if they have succeeded and or failed. And Basic Fantasy really does deliver on that. Now, the cool thing about Basic Fantasy that I do like, you can purchase the book. It's a pretty decent sized book. $5. It's going to cost you the same as this book, which is why I recommend these for people just starting out, because it's not a huge investment. But you don't even have to do that. You can even go to their website right here at www.basicfantasy.org. I've said this plenty of times. And you can download the rules on the PDF to free. And if you choose to print them out later, you can. But the way I look at it, if you're going to print it out, why not just pay the $5 and have the book delivered to you, and then you save yourself all that money in ink and paper? You know, you're still paying for it one way or another out of pocket, whether it's ink and paper, even though the PDF's free, or you buy the printed, which already for $5 comes, well, already bound for you and fits nicely on your bookshelf and has a nice sheen glossy cover. Now, I know what you may be thinking right now. Am I a spokesman for Basic Fantasy or for Against Dark? No, absolutely not. These are excellent game systems that I have picked up. And this one, after I had started my channel, I had somebody recommend it to me and asked me, have you ever tried it? And I said, never heard of it. And I saw it and I picked it up and I sat down and I played through it. And I said, hey, it's a cool little game, man. And, I mean, compared to other RPGs I was playing, it wasn't as in-depth as I would like out of an RPG, but it was fun. And I said, you know what this would be good for? This would be good for throwing some dungeon tiles out, getting some minis, and making some basic miniature war game type of scenarios, because everything I need is right here. And the way that it randomizes it, it always keeps it fresh and new, and every time I go through it, so I still utilize it. But I have also purchased others supplements that have made for Against Darkness as well, that expand the world, that take your characters out of the dungeon and take them out into the wilderness and take them into other parts, unlocking that world for you. But it's if you look at it, you would have to get a couple other books to get you there. Whereas the basic fantasy, well, it's going to do that for you. Now, instead of having a single sheet to where you're going to be tracking 4 different characters, there's a little more work to this. There's going to be a little bit more reading. And when it comes to tabletop RPG, basically at the end of the day, what you put into it is what you're going to get out. So if you don't put a whole lot of effort into it, you're not going to get a lot out of it. And, you know, that's unfortunately the way that old school tabletop RPGing goes. So, you know, something to think about. If you enjoy writing, creative writing, if you're a budding author and you're looking for resources for fresh ideas and stuff like that, some of these game sources can be an excellent source of inspiration for you. Or if you're just like me, you're just a game loving nerd that just loves RPGs and fantasy and sci-fi and all those other things, this is what I enjoy to do with my my leisure time, is to sit down and engage into a really good RPG and see, you know, what the dice rolls take me and how the story folds out and what I have after a few game sessions. Now, basic fantasy, you're going to make a character. Each character you want is going to have a separate character sheet. Your encounters are going to be far more detailed than what you are going to find in Against Darkness. And I'm going to pull up some of these encounters to be able to show you just what I am talking about here. So this is going to break, you know, you're going to get an explanation of monsters on 1, 2, 3, about 4 pages, and it's going to be pretty light reading. It's not going to take you long to grasp the concept of how the monsters work and how they're going to react to your characters and the different situations that are going to arise in your gaming with Against Darkness, which is nice because it's setting those parameters for everything to operate in so you can enjoy it solitarily. Whereas of this game is not. It's actually set up and it gives you all the information where a game master is going to run it. But if you're playing solitaire, you're not going to have a game master. You're going to be relying on different resources to be able to do that. And this is going to give you a lot more information. So instead of your monsters giving you brief descriptions of how the monsters are going to react to certain situations, that's going to be left up to the dice. And particularly as you get into your monsters, you're going to have a more in-depth explanation to them. You're going to be dealing with a lot more information, but don't let that scare you off. That's good, because what that's doing is it's giving you more freedom to be able to create and be able to populate the world that you have created and put these things in there to challenge your characters. Now, another thing that this game system is going to do for you is this isn't all going to take place in a dungeon. As a matter of fact, you can take place in a dungeon. It can take place in the wilderness. It could take place in some old medieval ruins that a lot of us would reference to old fantasy type of medieval Europe that you would see. So you're going to have an unbridled amount of creativity to be able to use with this to create game worlds and populate them the way that you want to. So as there's 2 different ways that I look at this. You kind of have your training right here into tabletop gaming that's going to show you how a solitaire game can work, how you can do a dungeon delve, and how you can have a game session, and how everything's going to be contained in this book, and it's going to show you. But what it's going to teach you are those fundamentals that you need to know before you move on to more complex but simple RPG systems, because by comparison, this actually is a very simple RPG system. It's very simple to understand. But if you were to come to this after understanding For Against Darkness, which really, realistically, won't take you long to get through this book and read it and understand it, you're going to be more well equipped. You're going to have a better understanding. And a lot of this, as you read through it, is going to make so much more sense to you, and you're going to have more clarity. Now, these are the two. If you're just starting out, you're new to gaming, you don't know where to start, you don't know where to go. It's a very small investment, but it's going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. You're going to have a lot of replayability to it. Whereas if you run out and you buy a more elaborate game system, not understanding if you like it or not, some game systems are very, very book heavy. And what I mean by book heavy is you're going to have to read a lot out of that book to be able to comprehend it. And you're going to be doing a lot of referencing, particularly the more complex it is, the more, how shall I put this, different parameters, we'll say, or aspects is a better word, of the game system that affect your character. There may be more complex rules, complex tables, and more things that are built into this, where it's going to take a lot more effort and it's going to take a lot more reading time. So, which brings me to the next thing I want to bring up about tabletop RPG gaming, and that is, if you want to get into the hobby, one thing is, if you do not enjoy to read, if you're one of those people, some people are, they only read out of necessity, and last thing they want to do is sit down and read a book just to read. There's people like that. And, I guess everybody to each their own, different people in this world. But I'm one of those people. I enjoy to read. So tabletop role-playing, is a no-brainer for me, because I get to engage with reading. I get to engage with a type of creative writing to where I get to be able to let my imagination off the hook and be able to create and do things like that, which allows me to do it. And it gives me the resources and things to think about, because these are a great catalyst for your imagination. So that's where I start. That's where I would start if you are just getting into the hobby. You're just starting. You don't know where to start, where to go. And the nice thing about this one right here, For Against Darkness, is the way that it traces. You use graph paper and you track everything. You really don't need a whole lot other than two six-sided dice, a piece of paper, a pencil, and an eraser, and that's all you need. Everything else is within the book. Basic Fantasy is going to introduce more. You're going to have a lot more to think about. You're going to have a little bit more sophistication, I shall say, at your fingertips to be able to do more with it. But that is the trade-off between the two. Now, if there is another game by the same publisher that they have come out with that I played, I enjoyed it. It was just kind of, it was like a travel, a never-ending travel that seemed like it was never going to end, and it really truly was, true to its name, you were alone against fear, which is this one right here, made by the same publisher, but you truly are a solitaire character in this. You're not with a other group that you're controlling of characters. You're going through this desolate city that is filled with just all sorts of horror. It's the best way I can it's a survival horror game. That's what it is. Exactly what it is. And I enjoyed it. I really did. But for me, I just after, I think it was like 4 game sessions of playing this, I just felt like I was on this aimless trek to nowhere. It was just going nowhere, and the more and more I discovered, the more, and it didn't dawn on me. I'm like, hey, the game really did do a good job at capturing you, not only just you playing the game, but your character being completely alone in this evil, dark world surrounded by, these horrifying creatures and sights and everything else. So it was it's a cool game. And it's another one of those that I would recommend. If fantasy is not your cup of tea, fighters and wizards and dragons and stuff like that, if you don't really, you're kind of like, it's not my thing, but I kind of like more of a, horror survival type of thing, more like a Resident Evil type of vibe from my gaming, you'd enjoy this. You would probably really enjoy diving into that and seeing what the world has to offer in Alone Against Fear. So anyways, people starting out, new people out there, this is where I would suggest for you to start and, see if you like it. If you like it, then at that point, once you understand this, you get it underneath your belt and you start moving further and you get into, if you choose to, basic fantasy, and you like that type of gaming, it's going to open up a lot more doors for you. And then at that point, you're going to be able to pick up an RPG book, go through it, and you're going to get a pretty good idea by going through it, looking at the layout and everything, if it's a game for you or not. Honestly, I have bought books in the past looking at the cover art and going, wow, that looks really cool. It looks really interesting, just to get it to sit down and read through it. And after I was done reading through it, I kind of realized the only thing that actually piqued my interest about the whole entire game was just the cover of the book. And everything else was it was a decent read, but that's all I had to say about that. Now, something to think about if you want to be a solitaire gamer, and there are 2 different, I'm going to say, types of gaming out there for tabletop that you're going to find and you're going to run into. And you're often going to hear a term used, OSR. Let's get that out right here. OSR. And you will even see this on backs of covers, all kinds of stuff. And you're probably, if you're new to gaming, that's going to mean you'll be confused by it, or you'll be asking people, what does this mean, OSR? And it stands for Old School Revival, Old School Renaissance, some people refer to it as. And what that is, as I mentioned earlier in the video, all the old original editions in older games like that fans over the years have loved and have been reproduced and put there out on the market for gamers to enjoy, are just as simple to get your hands on. But there are some things to take into consideration of OSR versus more modern RPGs that are out there today. And I'm going to get into those and break that down for you as well, so you're a little bit more informed with it. So OSR games, I enjoy OSR games. They're more dungeon heavy driven, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, because as the gaming originally, when it debuted, and I should say for me, because I know it was out long before I got my hands on this, was focused on dungeon. That's what it really was. It was focusing on going through dungeons or ruins and keeps. There was really not a whole lot about wilderness travel or traveling until, you know, you got into your expert rule set, and then it started to explain to you how to handle that and how to take your game to the next level. And, well, even though they're cool, and there's times I will still break these out and roll up characters and use them, there are other things out there that you can purchase that are way less expensive than breaking the bank to get an original copy of this that is in decent condition, has all the pages, does not have the ends, you know, chewed down by your house pets and stuff like that. So instead of being stuck with an extremely high-priced old copy of something, now you can buy stuff that's far more reasonable, won't break the bank, and the nice thing is the rules have been updated, streamlined, and more cohesive. So as you read them, you'll be able to get into the game more quickly and not be left with questions and confusion over some of the rules that were extremely vague. And I got 2 examples here of books. If you're interested in getting into gaming and you want to go more towards the old school feel, you want to know, hey, I want the old school revival, I want to get into the old school, I don't know about the modern stuff. And they're just as easy to get your hands on today, and they're around $5 a pop. They're not expensive at all. The first one I'm going to bring up is right here, White Box. So, White Box, and as I said on the back, you'll see there is essentially what you have here is this right here, but it is much more modern. The rules have been, like I said, they're more cohesive. It's more easy to understand. They're going to make it very engaging for the beginner, because just the way that it's set out, it's very light reading. It's going to explain to you everything you need. It's even going to give you your sample character sheet in there, that how, if you're filling out the character sheet, an idea of how it should look. Now, there's some differences with old school gaming compared to more modern gaming. More modern gaming that utilizes the D20 system, which is a simple system to understand. You're going to roll your 20-sided die. You're going to take that value and you're going to add it against any bonuses you have. And that end number added up should meet and or exceed your target number, which will tell you if you succeeded and or failed. Now, with your older game systems, they weren't that simple. They had a little bit more going on, and you had to cross-reference matrices, and you would roll the 20-sider, and you would add your bonuses, and you look at your final result, and then you would have to look at your opponent's AC number and cross-check this to see if you hit and or missed. It's a unique way of gaming. A lot of people still enjoy it, and that's the way that they want to stick with gaming. Other people, me myself included, I enjoy the old school stuff, but I really enjoy the modern D20 system too, particularly for solitaire, because it's so streamlined, it's so quick, versus having to stop in combat and cross-reference your table to see if you hit or you missed. Now, this is a complete game unto itself. You're going to get everything you need in here. This is going to have all your encounters. It's going to explain every aspect of the game. And it is what it is. It's a very basic RPG game. It's cheap. It's about $5 for you to get your hands on. And it's going to give you a really good taste and experience of OSR, what OSR is. And you may find you like the gaming, or you may find that you want something more modern of a D20 system. And you won't know until you try it. The other game that they have out as well, it's a little less information, a little bit more simple to understand than that. I know that may be hard to believe, but it is, and it's called Heroes and Monsters. And this is another one that is an OSR game. It's modeled right after this one. Streamlined rules. It's going to explain everything you need. Everything will be in here. Your encounters will be in here. And it's going to give you that ability to be able to unleash your imagination and bring it to your game table. Now, these are all things to consider. The books that I showed you are relatively, they're inexpensive. Each one was $5 a piece. And if you're new into gaming, I highly, highly, highly recommend you to go that route first to see if you like it. If you try to go the other route and you want to just jump straight into a modern game system like this, you're looking in the neighborhood. I would have to check because it's been so long. But you're probably looking, I'm guessing, today in a neighborhood of anywhere from about $100 to $130 to get all three main core rule books to be able to just run the basic game. And that's not to only that, but then you're going to have the process of reading, understanding, character creation. It goes on and on. You see where I'm going with that. Whereas if with these guys like this, you're paying $5, your entire game is in here. And you're going to know after one or two game sessions as to whether you like tabletop gaming or you don't. You may find out you love it, you want to be challenged, and you want to move on to more complex game systems. And at that point, step on up to things like this, or like this, the One Ring, which are also solitaire, can be a solitaire game system that is really enjoyable. So I hope this helps with the new gamers out there, people just now getting into the hobby, trying to figure out where should I start, where should I go. These are very inexpensive game systems to get you into it, to see if you like it. If you don't, you're not out of anything. You can hand it off to somebody else, or I'm sure put it in a garage sale and sell it for $1, $2, whatever, you're willing to part with it, and somebody else out there may be just absolutely tickled pink to get their hands on it. But if you do enjoy it and you decide, hey, I want to go a little bit further into this, the next video I think I'll do is I'll talk more about supplements, resources, tables, and stuff like that that you're going to need. But like I said, if you're new, you just got into the hobby, you don't know where to start, these right here are absolutely excellent places to start for gaming. Now, as I said before, these are not going to be a solitaire. These are going to be a game system unto themselves. They're going to explain to you how to play, and they're simple enough. You can make a solitaire experience out of it, whereas these guys right here are designed specifically for solitaire play. So if you're looking to get into solitaire type of gaming and you're new to this, check these out. It's going to teach you the fundamentals you need to know, and it's going to give you a good framework to work within, and it's going to help you, make better purchasing decisions in the future as to which way you want to move. All right, my friends, I think I've talked your ear off long enough. I hope, like I said, for you new people out there, that this helps, and it helps, you know, clear some of the clouds of confusion you may be seeing. Where do I start? What should I buy? Where should I go? Because, and I think, you know, without breaking the bank, without making an investment to find out you don't like it, it's a relatively cheap investment, and you'll know. But until then, my friends, if you liked the video, click the like button. And if you're new here, you're still here at the video at the end, and you want to see more of my videos, or if you want to see my next video, don't forget to click the subscribe button followed by the bell icon so you get a notification. Until then, my friends, this is Artichoke Dip, signing off.